right, so you guys ready to do this? I did, yeah. Hi. Welcome to the Comics Pals. We are live. Let us know if you can hear us. I am still working on my setup, so let us know if you guys can hear us out there. Marco, let me know if they're what they're saying. Can they hear us? We can. Okay. Well, can he hear you? That's a critical question. Because if he can't hear you, that means he can't hear Victor. We can't have that. Yeah? Okay. So, if you can hear Marco and you can hear me, then that means we're live and things are good, which means that it is my time, it's my responsibility to introduce you all to the third man. But this is a man that shouldn't need any introduction, because this is a man who is an award-winning comic book creator, all right? This is a man who has the title, the only man with the title, the hardest working man in comics. This is the man behind the Samaritan, the comic book, the one that matters. This is a man behind The Trouble with Love, and this is a man behind everybody's favorite children's comic. I'm calling it now, Victor. I'm going to talk for you, all right? Kindergardians, which is on Kickstarter right now, already a success. We are speaking with the man, the myth, the legend, Victor Dandridge, the hardest working man in comics. How are you doing today, my brother?
Bro, like, listen. I don't deserve that kind of level of intro. I appreciate you. I love you. I will mouth kiss you if you want me to, because that's worthy of such thing. No, seriously, man, like, you got me pumped up right now. You got me out here. The world could literally end, and I'd be cool because I feel like I'm the biggest name in the Armageddon right now. Like, you got me feeling like I'm everything. Thank you.
You are everything.
So happy to be here.
And I'm glad you're here. And you're in the trenches right now. Tell the people where you are.
So yes, I'm in Raleigh, North Carolina. I'm here for GalaxyCon. It's a great return. I haven't been back to the show since 2019. And of course, I keep telling people, like, yeah, I was here last year. And I'm like, wait, 1, 2, 3. Oh, it's been like 3 years. So, that's, it's those COVID counts, man. We don't know how to count years anymore. But no, it's been excellent. I've had a great show. Met some great new talent that I've never worked with before. Brittany Karbowski, who is the voice of like over 400 characters in anime. She is phenomenal. I worked with Austin St. John, the Red Ranger. I've had some great pleasures. I know, right? Like, my 10-year-old self is sitting there like, how do I become you? Tell me how I become you. And I'm like, just let it happen, little guy.
Right.
Just let it happen.
Right. Absolutely. So we have a lot to talk about.
Yes.
We have a lot to talk about because not only Victor's a world traveler, hardest working man in comics. That comes with a lot of travel because, Victor doesn't just sit at home and, scribble his books. Victor gets out in the trenches. He peddles his wares. He brings the comic books to your door practically. Victor's hot off of San Diego Comic-Con. The whole industry is hot off of San Diego Comic-Con. And so what we want to do is we want to pick Victor's brain about his experience there, but also some of the major announcements that came out of the event and what he thinks about them. Victor is one of the things I always love about getting to talk with you, Vic, whether it's on or off mic, is that you really do this. Like you're as into it as we are. Like, we can actually talk about the nitty gritty, like, nerd stuff. You know what I'm saying?
Of course.
So we're going to do that. I do really quickly, and of course, we're going to talk about Kindergartens. We're going to get to the Kickstarter. Really quick, want to let you guys know where you can find us all over the internet, of course. We are the Comics Pals. There is a link tree that includes all of our stuff in the description of any video or audio content you hear from us. But we do want to mention patreon.com/thecomicspals, where for as little as $3 a month, you can support your boys and get our newsletter, amongst other really cool things like our Palling Around Patreon exclusive show. You get to vote on the book clubs, and you get a slick nickname, a supervillain or superhero nickname. Yes, indeed, Vic, we do those.
Oh, might hold on. Let me join that right now.
On the fly.
That.
So,
right.
I want to say thank you to Thunderstruck, Rebecca Alejandro, the Night Stalker, Harris Nijinsky, Brian Demolisher Del Pozo, Random Rocio, Kefis the Incorruptible, The Great Destroyer, Hyper Viper 89, Momentum, Mike Elliott, Starcross, Catherine Stars, Indestructible, Indy Aaron, The Hellspawn Scribe, Nihilus, and the Ultimate Fighter, Snake of Talons. Thank you to every single one of you.
These are Wu-Tang level names, man. Like, let's go. Let's go.
Well, I came up. I did all of those except for the Hellspawn Scribe Nihilus. So these are the people who have supported us at the $10 or more tier. These are the champions. So thank you to every single one of you.
No, that's amazing.
All right, so let's get to Victor. Let's get to the man of the hour, the man of the millennium, the Millennium Man. That'll be mine.
Just as soon as we get off of here, I'm watch. Patreon up. Let's go.
All right, so I want to see if I can't show, because Victor actually brought some things, some goodies with him to showcase. See if I can find that. But while I'm looking, I want to talk about Kindergartens.
Yes.
Because, again, we've had you on the show many times. You've come on and we've talked about the Trouble with Love, and that was a lot of fun. We actually talked about the Samaritan too. That was a lot of fun. But Kindergartens is different, because Kindergartens, you make books for everybody. Kindergartens is for the youngest among us. And this is I think I got a chance to look at the you had a link to the first issue in the Kickstarter page, which we're going to have a link to. And that was very cute and very fun. I wished I had a youngster in my life that I could, hand it over to and say, hey, this is for you. No,
it's the youngster in you. It's the youngster in you. Yeah. That still counts. Bro.
Absolutely. I enjoyed it. And we do have some parents in the audience too, so definitely want you parents to pay special attention. Victor, can you tell the audience what the Kindergartens is and sort of what they can expect?
Okay, so Kindergartens is a series. The full title is Wonder Care Presents the Kindergartens, which is co-created by Justin Castaneda, creator out of Chicago. And the essential pitch is it's Muppet Babies meets the Justice League, okay? So it's a Saturday morning cartoon in comic book form, sons and daughters of the world's greatest superheroes going to a specialized school, learning how to become the heroes of tomorrow while having their own little misadventures along the way. And it's so funny, the real origin story for this series, no joke, is I do my teaching program called You Create Comics. And at the time that I launched it, was around the same time that I launched Vantage In-House, my publishing imprint. But the first books out of Vantage In-House were The Samaritan, Origins Unknown, and The Trouble with Love. So as I'm trying to get into elementary schools, I have no elementary school age appropriate material to show teachers and principals what I have. So the idea of the Kindergartens was in the back somewhere, and I'm like, bring that to the forefront. If you want to get into schools, you got to show them that you do kid-friendly material. And that's where everything started. It was really like a launching pad to bring the You Create Comics line into schools. But since then, the characters have taken a life of their own. The title has become something amazing. Justin and I have been firing on all cylinders, where we have created this universe that, no joke, by the 10th issue, we have created more than 30 characters for this series. More than 30. No joke. No joke.
Wow.
Like, thank you.
That's incredible.
So yeah, It's a lot of fun. We're aiming to, tap that place and space, right? Like where you were a little kid, you want to read this book with your favorite bowl of cereal. That's the only thing it doesn't come with, right? It doesn't come with your favorite bowl of cereal. That's our fault. We're working on fixing that, but the feels are there. We've got the classic old school messaging, which I think is really important, right? Like we've got in that first issue, how far is up? We have Pep, our resident speedster, right? She's essentially like the daughter of the Flash. And we have no problems with making those kind of comparisons. A lot of people are like, "Oh, original characters, original characters." Sometimes the archetypes work way better when you lean into them. So she's got this idea where if she runs fast enough, she can run from land to water and never, break stride. So she's looking and she's like, "How come I can't do that to the sky? There's a definite place in the distance I see where the ground and sky touch. I should just be able to run right into the sky." And she tries to figure out how to do that. And now those of us, grounded in reality, we understand that that's not necessarily a real thing that you can do. And so in her pursuit of doing this, she comes across these twins who are twin boys who are basically the sons of Superman and Wonder Woman in this universe. And one is very, very serious about being a hero. He's like, you got to do everything by the book, like dad would do it, blah, blah, blah. And the other one's just kind of laid back and cool. He's like, look, we got superpowers. Like we can do anything, man. That's awesome. That's all I want is just to be awesome and supportive. And the brothers have this conflict in this issue where one is like, "Hey, Pep, good luck. I want you to try it." The other one's like, "Why didn't you tell her the truth? She can't do that. A real hero should tell the truth." And that becomes the bigger story, right? Of is it better to encourage the impossible or allow reality to anchor people's dreams? That becomes a very big conversation, something that adults can get into and maybe be moved a little bit when they hear it, because they go, "Well, there's some stuff that I probably wanted to explore, but I listened to XYZ person that said, 'Oh, you can't do that. You don't know what to do.'" And then they didn't do it. So maybe we can get some people that are having some just general fun, but then we can encourage folks to try something they've never thought that they could do.
That's beautiful.
Thank you.
And I want people to, if you're watching this live or you're watching this on YouTube right now, I have on the screen one of the images, one of the Kickstarter images, one of the promotional images that we were given by Victor, and you can see how awesome the art is. But what's so cool is that QR code on the screen should work. It worked for me. I tested it out. Yes. It works. So if you actually want to go straight to the Kickstarter page, you can just use your phone and go and grab that QR code, and you can head on over to the Kickstarter page.
And if you're in chat, I've also dropped the link to it, so you can go straight right in there.
Yes, thank you. Yes, awesome. And so this you worked with, correct me if I'm wrong, but Justin Castaneda on this, right?
Yes. Justin, he's my co-creator on this one. Brilliant guy.
Awesome. Yeah. And I love the vibrancy that he brings to it. It captures the spirit of what you're clearly going for, which is that youthful, fun, awkward energy. It really comes across on the page. It's really great.
Thank you. No, I owe so much to the visual characterization of these guys to Justin. He's a phenomenal co-creator, and he's actually one of the most hands-on co-creators that I've ever had, where after we did the first issue or so, he was like, "Hey, I got this idea. I want to do like strips of these guys. Do you care?" And I'm like, "Do it, please." And so he started wondercareafterschool.tumblr.com, where there are like little comic strips that do knock joke gags, all kinds of fun stuff, just as extra pieces of storytelling and keeping him drawing these guys. And, over the years, what we started doing was using the strips to be a lead into the next issue. So like he would have like jokes, and then I would write one that was the lead into. So then we would use that in the issue as previously on, very much so in the old school X-Men setup, previously on Kindergartens, and this is what happens. And we jump right into that issue. So like, this is our childhood brought to life in comic book form, without question.
So you do a lot of different kinds of books. You seem to want, and we've talked about this before, to have something on the shelf for every kind of reader, every potential kind of reader.
Yes.
Now, the Samaritan, for example, is like this really kind of like gritty, darker story with with powers, people with powers and stuff like that. But it's really dark and gritty. You're dealing with some heavier themes. The Trouble with Love, again, people with powers, not necessarily as dark as the Samaritan, but it's got those themes going. It's got those big, heady themes about love and relationships, things like that. Is it difficult for you as a writer to switch those gears between going from like the heaviness of the Samaritan to the lighter, all ages storytelling of Kindergartens? How do you get into that vibe for each different kind of story that you're working on?
I think the best writers in the game will tell you that these stories, we're basically vessels for these stories. We don't write them, right? Like, we're not generating this story. This story is being told to us by the ether, the spirits from on high. Like, wherever inspiration comes from, they tell us this, and we're just the vessel that we put it down through. And it becomes easier when you are open to listening to how inspiration is whispering in your ear. So it's not so much, oh, I'm writing something kid-friendly, or I'm writing something, very mature. It's what's the story? And whatever the story is, if I'm listening to that voice, that inner thing inside of me, it's super easy. It's only when I am trying to write something that it becomes difficult, because I'm fighting against the story itself. And one of the things in my career I've learned to do is not to do that. Like, don't fight it. Listen to the story, put down what it's giving you, and see where that goes.
Because I feel like if you force the issue on those kinds of things, it affects the quality. It affects, like, to your point, the story itself. And if you're able to capture the essence of it, like the way you described it, right? It's Muppet Babies with the Justice League, right? That as a concept is something that you can build upon, work with. Right. But it's when you start to think or try to inject something with like a specific intention that maybe these things start to fall apart. Is that something that when you generally write, you feel like beyond just kind of like finding the story, the actual way that you present it, the presentation, like how much of that comes from the way that you write it, or the way that maybe you collaborate with your artist?
So that's a fantastic question. So the way that I write stories, my scripts are me telling the artist the story for their interpretation to kind of shine through. I'm not so rigid, like when I say this, it has to look like this, it has to look like that. I'm just trying to get across an idea to you, and then however you interpret that back to me is what we ultimately will see. When it comes to any sort of like really like fine-tuning things, it's only about the characters and their individual voices that I really try to focus on. How would this person say that thing? Right? Like I can have an idea of what needs to be said, but what is this character's specific voice trait that will allow me to say this like they would say it? And that becomes any sort of cognitive thought process of, no, I have to make sure this goes this way. So like how the character Horace would say something versus the character Cub would say something very, very different. And so it's really about structuring things in that sort of character voice that is the only work that I put in terms of doing that. But really, like it's wide open in terms of what you guys read. It's a matter of the interpretation of what the artist has taken, and then me coming back with words to match what they've put down.
So real quick, there's someone in the chat of Avenging Pineapple who says, hi Comics Pals, what kind of stand-up comedy do you do? We don't do comedy. Thank you for the comedy. We don't do stand-up comedy. We are speaking about comic books here, and Victor Dandridge is a comic book creator extraordinaire. We're talking about his work on Wonder Care Presents the Kindergartens, which is on Kickstarter right now. This is a fully funded, or a funded Kickstarter, right? Congratulations on that. You've done several now that have been funded, and now we're in the fun part. Everybody knows the fun part, which is when you get into the stretch goals and you can start getting some really cool things added to your overall package. The project is over $6,000.
Yes.
Right now.
my God, the biggest one that we've had on our imprint yet. So
Yeah?
I'm so appreciative and thankful for everyone that's
Awesome.
put in on this
Oh,
one.
awesome, man.
Seriously.
Congratulations.
Yeah.
That's super cool.
Thank you. Thank you.
So we have creators in our community. We have people that make comics in our community.
Right.
When it comes to Kickstarter, and let's say, you're giving advice or you're speaking to the Victor Dandridge of old, or people who are just starting out on Kickstarter trying to make it work. What are the biggest things that you think people either don't know at first, or they just get wrong, or the things that you think people need to know to be able to do this successfully and without losing their hair or going gray?
Yeah, I will be honest. When it comes to marketing my book specifically, not even just for Kickstarter, it's not something that I've done well. I have had a habit of creating something and moving on to create the next thing, right? That's just my creative energy. But one of the things that I think really works well for Kickstarter is taking your time and setting up a plan of action. So I would say you can probably have an amazing Kickstarter campaign over a 90-day period. And that's including the 30 days of the actual campaign. I think you can actually pull that off. And it's, a matter of seeding interest, telling people it's coming, building up to the launch, and then actually creating like a fun for you filled like marketing plan that every day you talk about your project in a different way. I think that's one of the biggest things that most people fail on is they just, they create one promotional thing and they just repeat that every day, which becomes spammy nonsense. Like nobody wants to hear that every day. But if you try to come up with something different to talk about every single time you're talking about this thing, it'll resonate with somebody differently. And you never know where that could come into play. Like one of the things that we're going to do, because we're in our last week, I have every intention of trying to say, who are the voice actors that I would love to see voice these characters if we were ever to take this into animation? That's a totally different, space and place than what we've normally been in when we're talking about this book. So it's just kind of having something fun to discuss when it comes to this. So I think that's the biggest thing.
That's really interesting. And I think a lot of writers, right? Introverts, we just kind of want to work and do our thing and call it a day. I think when you're trying to step out into the world, the world is very different. It's not like the 90s anymore where you can just get that work at Marvel and that's it. Now, for most of us, even those at Marvel and DC, you have to put in the legwork to push your comic book. And it's not enough to just be good at the writing part, or even in some instances, the art part. Like you have to be able to bring people to the door, and that's going to be coming from you. Why should they buy this? Why should they invest in you as a person? Which I think is sometimes just as important as the book itself. I think people like yourself, I think of Dirk Manning as well. You guys are very charismatic, and you kind of make people want to gravitate towards you. The first time I met you, it was at New York Comic Con, and I was like, I like this guy. Like I want to talk to this guy. I want to see what this guy's about. Before I even got to look at the comic. So
and it's funny. That's a conversation piece that's happening on Twitter like right now of what's more important to market, your book or you? And I'm like, both. Right. It's not a separation.
Yeah. There's an approachability that you have to like really hone. I think one of the times we went to Philly for a con. I don't believe it wasn't one of the Philly ones, but that's where we first met Greg Anderson, and he's a great dude, very similar energy. He's just like very open, super friendly, and one of the things that he does is he tries to first like approach you as a person, like, hey, how are you doing? What's going on? And then he'll like, you chat for a little bit. How's your con experience, whatever. And then you come into like, oh, like this is my series. This is Anansi, the Were Spider. And this is the books that this is the content I'm trying to push. This is my message. And I think one of the things that happens a lot at cons is you'll go through the alleys, through the rows and the tables, and you just kind of see people heads down, kind of just giving you like a stare. Like that's not how you push your message, not how you push your book. And I think in person, that's the way that you have to do more than that. You have to really build a personal connection before you can tell somebody, these are the wares I'm peddling, I guess, for lack of a better term. And on social media, because you don't have that personal touch, it becomes that much more harder. And so to your point, right, like you don't want to spam things, you don't want to just hit people over the head with these things. The fact that it's changing the messaging, I think, is a really good point. How do you develop those things? Like what are the things you think about when you're thinking about your story, and like the kind of different angles you can take? Like what are those approaches?
Well, I think one of the first things that you have to do is really be open to what your story actually is. A lot of times when we get into a space place, we've created something, we think that that's all that it's going to be. Be open to the idea that it could be something more than what you even intended. It's like kids, right? Like we can raise our kids to be certain things, but they'll turn into whatever they want. And you kind of have to embrace that. And so, when like I said, I started off the Kindergartens with this idea that it was something that I could use to get another project into schools. If that's all I talked about it as, then I would be bankrupt on so many different aspects of what the Kindergartens has become. Like, I mean, we've even gone as far as to explain the Black Lives Matter movement and the push against police brutality through this series, because we were open to what they could do. And, when you can do something like that, when you look at something and allow it to grow, breathe, and become, you have all kinds of things that you can talk about. You can talk about how the different characters have certain relatability issues and how they overcome those. And now you have something else that you can discuss. We've got, like I said, the Ultra Twins, the character Castor, very, high strung. I'm a superhero because my dad's a superhero. His reaction to the character Electron, whose father is a super villain, he's always antagonistic to Electron because he's like, I know you're a villain. Your dad's a villain. You're going to be a villain. I'm sure of it. How do we get to a place where they become friends? That's a story. Like, that's a brilliant story. And it's not even necessarily the core context of one of the issues, but to see that happen, that you can have somebody that you disagree with on an ideological basis, but find value in them as a person. Now we have something else to talk about. And that, like I said, it's not even the core, subject of the series, but that's stuff that we touch on. And, during a campaign, who wouldn't care about that? Like, who would listen and be like, oh, that's a sucky story. I don't care about that. Book makes you like people that are different. Boo! Like, that's not, that's a talking point. That's an easy sell point. And again, something that's aimed at kids but still accessible by adults, even better.
I love that you made the comparison or referenced earlier the X-Men animated series, because I feel like we've kind of gotten away from storytelling in children's stories or
Yes.
that kind of content that also has, I don't want to say complex messages, but messages that you have to work a little bit to kind of grasp or think about, the stuff that makes kids think. I grew up on that show. I grew up on a lot of that stuff from the 90s, and some of them had messages that stick with me. And I watch back and I'm like, well, wow, that was a little bit heavy. Like that X-Men show, they dealt with some stuff. But I got it. You know what I'm saying? Kids are not stupid. And you can inject it in there. And it doesn't have to be, you don't have to show something crazy. You can just seed it and they'll get it. It'll be in there.
Right.
It'll be in there.
Exactly.
So in some ways, Victor Dandridge is raising the children of America.
I'm trying. I'm sorry, my headphones just died, so I'm hoping you guys can still hear me.
We can still hear you, yeah.
Yeah, you're good.
Okay, good.
Absolutely.
Yeah, dude, I'm absolutely trying to create the better future, because if we just wait for the future to happen, whatever we get is what we get. And I'm much more of a know them, they those. I owe my mother $1 every time I say that. But the future that I want, it's my job, my responsibility to help build it. So when it comes to such things, yeah, I want to put out those ideas of what I think goodness is, and allow for folks to kind of have that conversation amongst themselves to see how do they agree with it, what's the spectrum of it that they sit on, because it's not just an either or. In so many cases and places, there's room for all of us. We just got to find a way to make it fit, and that's what I'm aiming for. That's what I want the kids to see.
Absolutely. Real quick, if you guys that are watching want to ask Victor any questions, please feel free to put them in the Twitch chat.
Yeah,
we did unfortunately burn a little time getting things together, so I don't want to like take
it's
up.
all good. It's
All right. You give me the go home sign whenever.
yeah. I've got we'll say a solid 25 minutes.
Oh, we can do a lot of work in 25 minutes, my brother. So I wanna I don't want to navigate away from the Kickstarter before I quickly say that if you want to pick this up, which I'm gonna actually go ahead and put that QR code back on screen just to make it easy for people. If you want to pick this up, in my opinion, right, as somebody who's looking at, you know, the different tiers and what they offer, I really feel like if you yourself or for your kids, you want to kind of get the Kindergartens experience, I think you want to get the whole series. And the cool thing is that the whole series, it's only $40. It's only $40. That's cheaper than if you just buy volume 2. Mm-hmm. And you're getting the Kindergarten story in full for now, right? Mm-hmm. For now. And you're getting the stretch goals. The more we support, the more we're going to get out of this. And so I really think that if you're going to support, which I think you should, that's the way to do it.
Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely.
And we do have a question from chat. Is the Kickstarter the only place to get the Kindergartens right now?
No, you could actually buy individual issues through my website, vantageandhouse.com. We probably should have shut that down to funnel more people to the Kickstarter, but it's one of those things where what's interesting is those are individual issues, right, which we actually did a separation. So individual issues, each story actually has 4 pages of activities in the back. Again, because this is kid friendly, we're not making this for collectors. We want you to write in it. We want you to color it. We want kids to be hands-on. Destroy your books because you've experienced them that much. You know what I mean? Like, that's such an important thing. But when we went to collecting them in trade paperback graphic novel format, we took those activities out so that we were library friendly, because we don't want kids to write in the books when they go to libraries. So that's one of the big benefits of buying the individual issues, is that you still have those activities. Now, I will throw this in. Issues 8, 9, and 10 have never been released as individual issues. They are exclusive to Volume 2 of the Kickstarter. So you can only get up through issue 7 as an individual piece. And that's going to be part of the fun, because if we hit our next stretch goal, we were just shy of $1,800 from our next stretch goal. I have to create what we call the replay book. And the replay book, when we went to the trade paperback for the first volume of collecting the first 5, we took all of the activity sheets out and we collected that in a book called Replay. And it's basically, we put it in a school context, which is so silly. We created it's a substitute teacher. It's a cube unit called Sub, right? And what does subs normally do when they get brought into a classroom? They give you dittos to do, and a lot of times they're dittos that you've already done before. So that's why we call it Replay, because if you've ever had these issues before and you've done these puzzles, here's your chance to do them again, or share them with a friend or something like that. So this next volume, or this next stretch goal, we'll create a second volume of those, which will collect the activities from 6, 7. But then I have to make up a ton more that would have been featured in the individual issues of 8, 9, and 10. So this is going to be like a huge project on top of the series if we get to that level. So I'm excited. I'm excited about it.
That's awesome. That it's so looking through the first issue, which you have available on the Kickstarter. Mm-hmm. That was one of the first things that I noticed, like after reading through with the activities, because like you always have this, you're always honed in onto the education angle of it, and it's a passion I think for me as well, where you want to teach comics, right? Teaching comics helps to promote comics down the line, create new creators, new readers, new anything. And how do you typically approach injecting a learning aspect into, or an education aspect into these books?
That's a great question. The educational part always comes second to the story itself, because it's one of those things where I think one of the biggest problems in that space is when someone tries to teach you, then they become preachy. When they actually tell you something interesting and they go back and they look and go, well, what does this teach you? Now it's a totally different scenario. And all I'm doing is pointing out the fun of the story that has educational value. Like in our 5th issue, it's the whole issue, this is no joke, is a whole setup so I can do a punchline about palindromes. Like that's literally why I did this story. It's also I can do a punchline about palindromes because I'm a dad and it's a huge dad joke. But we explain what a palindrome is, right? Like, you know, when we get to that point at the end of the story, you know, and we say it, we have to explain what a palindrome is. And so then we do. And as an activity, we have crossword puzzles and all of the answers are palindromes. And it's to get people to kind of go, oh, okay, I know what this is now. It's fun, it's silly, but at the same time, you will learn something. You know, you'll realize that the word race car is a palindrome, and you never thought of that before, but it totally is. You know, for those that don't know, palindromes are words that are spelled the same forwards and backwards. So, you know, that's the joke. That's the fun of it. But again, those are things that, from the story, that's what I was able to pull as an educational feature. You know, kind of looking at it and going. Here's what the story is. What is somebody supposed to take from this? And when you lean into that on the activity side, it becomes even better.
And you add to the value of the comic as well, right? You extend the life of it. And I think I like that you have both a literary aspect to it as well as the art piece, because you can draw pep. You can color in the kindergartens. You can do more with it, and that's great. The writing girl knock knock joke, amazing, right? That's
Come on, right?
Fun. Yeah.
Like,
But kids love that.
Right. You know, in fact, I think that was the part that inspired Justin to want to do the Wonder Care After School strips, because he's like, well, this is fun. I want to do that. And so he started to, and it would make original strips to tell these jokes. And so they're hilarious. I love them.
So Catherine in the chat says, Victor, this sounds so cool to have the ability to sort of have them well loved. I know I have books from my childhood like that.
Oh, God, yes. I do as well. If you give a mouse a cookie, still my jam, right? Like that is one of those books that will never, ever die for me. It's, you know, I love that story. Where the Sidewalk Ends. Those are classics for me. Like, anything that I could do that would ever be compared to Shel Silverstein or any story like that, I would mouth kiss whoever said it. Like, no joke, full time even. Like, you're going down. It's going down.
Unreal. Well, you know what? It went down at San Diego Comic-Con, and
Yeah.
Victor was on the ground floor.
Yes.
So can you kind of run us through a little bit of your experience at the event, and then I want to talk to you about some of the announcements.
Sure. Okay, so I was in Hall H. I was in the room where it happened Saturday, when we had the plethora of things. Now, let me be straight up frank and clear for folks. Being in Hall H is its own experience. Like, yes, all the things that they showed, well, most of the things that they showed, you guys saw almost immediately after online. But it is not the same as being in this communal space, 7,000 voices cheering in unison over the things that we got to see.
Wait, you were at Marvel's Hall H panel?
At Hall H panel, baby. I was in the room when it happened, okay?
Wow.
I was there.
How? Okay, so I have to ask you. So,
Yes.
Was it because of who you are, or did you have to like wait in line like every other schlub?
I had to wait in line like everybody else, man. There's
Okay.
no flexing on this one. This one is about humility. That's important. Got to be humble when you do this, because here's the requirement to get into Hall H for Saturday. You have to spend all day Friday in line, and I've been very fortunate. Like the very first year that I went, I met up with a crew of people that were our line mates, right? And we became really friendly, and we've been line mates since like 2017. So this is a crew. Like, this is what they do. They're a well-oiled machine. This is what they do. So big shout out to Chrissy Nelson, Eric, everybody. Like, much love to y'all. Chrissy and my man Bill were in line 2:30 in the morning, Friday morning, to get ready, to get into their spot. Now, mind you, they got in line at 2:30 in the morning. Where we were was approximately the 1900 range of people getting into the room.
Wow.
Right? 2:30 in the morning. So you're spending all day Friday. You are losing Friday, essentially, by being in line for Hall H for Saturday. Now, because we have a crew, we have an understanding. What we do is, if there's something that you want to see, we will swap in and out of line because one person can hold the equivalent for 5 people.
Oh.
So we're going to have in our group total, and there has to be a minimum of at least 3 for us because we had like 14 people in our group. So at least 3 people had to be in our space and line all day, and we would swap in and out. We would take responsibilities for each other. I'm bringing water, I'm bringing pizza, you're bringing donuts, you got coffee, and we take care of each other over the course of that day. Now, it gets even deeper because in order to kind of maintain a certain space, once you get into the room, you have the opportunity to stay overnight in that line so that way you can hold the fort for your squad when they get back in the morning. And you have to be back Saturday morning by 6:30 in the morning to get to your spot.
Wow.
Because when they start letting you into the Hall H, it fills up. So you've never seen 7,000 people fill up so fast. Like it's boom. And so that's what we did. Like I slept overnight outside in a sleeping bag with my crew, and we were getting ready for Hall H Saturday. And woo, let me tell you.
Tell me.
It's off, we get Warner Brothers. So the first thing that we saw, special clip from Shazam, Fury of the Gods. Zach Levi comes out. We see some of the other cast members come out. Lucy Liu was in the room, y'all.
Wow.
Lucy Liu was in the room. Yes. I've been trying to figure out how long I've loved her. It's got to be since Payback. What was that, 96? I don't even know. Just so they have their thing, and that's brilliant. We love it. Then room gets dark. This thing starts doing like the smoke stuff up on the screen. All of a sudden it starts flashing light like it's lightning. And all of a sudden we hear Black Adam himself on this platform. So it looks like he's flying. Lightning bolts are striking behind him. It's amazing. It's Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson live in person.
Wow. Shouting
out Black Adam. We got an exclusive clip. In this clip, and it's so important for people to understand this, in this clip, more people died than I think collectively in the last 3 Jurassic Park movies.
What?
Not even joking. I think more people died in this one little, I think it was like 3 minutes. More people died in this than in the last 3 Jurassic Park movies put together. So yeah. They had a nice Black Adam presentation. So we had Dwayne was out there. Aldous Hodge, who's going to play Hawkman, was out there. The guy that's playing Atom Smasher was out there. The sweet young lady that's playing Cyclone was out there. It was amazing. It was amazing.
That's awesome.
And that's just one. That's how we started.
Right.
That's how we started it. God, we saw Sandman. We had a presentation of Paramount Plus. So they did Picard. They did Lower Decks. They did Strange New Worlds. We had House of Dragons. All these wonderful things that, just throughout the day, we saw amazing stuff. There was an Entertainment Weekly panel on women and being empowered in the geek space. Great conversations on that one. Dulce Sloan, girl, y'all know who Dulce Sloan is?
I don't.
That woman spits fire.
Yeah.
Spits fire and is pure magic. Loved it. And then around 5 o'clock in the afternoon is when the Marvel panel happens. That's when the magic kicks off. And yeah.
They brought it.
Kevin
Feige
stepped out there. We knew what it was. We knew we was going to get some magic. And we had the showcases from She-Hulk, Ant-Man Quantumania. They brought the cast of Guardians 3 out. And when they brought out the Black Panther crew, it was, listen, they started that panel off. No. Y'all got questions. I'm going to let y'all ask.
All right. So, real quick, I do want to say our main topic today is going to be about Black Panther. It's going to be about the trailer. It's going to be about, how people are responding to everything and whether or not Marvel has made a mistake with Black Panther.
Right.
That's our main topic. Right. But we're far from that, and unfortunately, we are not going to have the time with you to get your feedback on that in that conversation. But I'm gonna make it work. So my first question to you is, because we didn't see this footage, Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania. The footage you saw, was it impressive? Was it interesting? Did you like it? And was Kang in it?
Yes, we saw Kang in it, and that's part of what made that crazy. Like, they hinted at Kang. Like, it's not like we don't know Kang is in it.
Right.
But the trailer itself, only hinting at him, builds up something so spectacular. Especially when in the presentation of all the things, the different phases, we have an understanding of how big Kang is about to be. And yeah, that was amazing. Jonathan Majors shows up. He came through, and I don't know if this was his first time seeing this trailer, because the way he's reacting, I'm thinking it is. Like, right. He hadn't seen it, and he was just as geeked out as we were.
That's awesome.
Just as geeked.
He's a cool dude.
Yeah.
I it's funny because for me, Ant-Man Quantumania was the movie that I came away from Comic-Con most excited about, that I hadn't been thinking about, just because of the description of the trailer, some of the things that were said about it, the fact that MODOK is in it. So, like, it just seems like it's going to be a very fun movie, but also a very pivotal movie.
Yes. This one, and it's kind of funny, like, in the grand scheme of how Ant-Man has fit within the MCU, I wasn't a big fan of Avengers Age of Ultron. So when the first Ant-Man hit as the follow-up to that, I thought it made it that much better, because I was kind of like on a down note about Age of Ultron, and Ant-Man was just so surprising in its fun, and I loved it. Unfortunately, Ant-Man and the Wasp was coming after Infinity War, which was super high note, so it didn't quite hit that same level. But I think that there is something that they're leaning into very wisely that says Ant-Man is not, it's not such a groundbreaker that it's guaranteed success. This is the place where we can start to build stuff, and we can go in different directions, because no one is actually expecting Ant-Man 3 to be this or that. So it gives them room to kind of come in and go, we're going to show you something that you didn't expect to see through this. And I mean, brilliant, absolutely brilliant.
Yeah, totally. The Multiverse Saga. The Multiverse Saga. Now we've got an official name for phases 4, 5, and 6, which encompasses everything we've already seen from phase 4. It includes Black Panther. It includes She-Hulk. Then we got phase 5, which was pretty much all stuff we knew was coming. They did announce the new Captain America New World Order, which is going to be pretty cool. They announced the Daredevil series, Born Again, and Thunderbolts. So cool stuff coming there. Then we got to phase 6, and they only showed us 3 projects, but I mean, my God. Fantastic Four release date. And then 2 Avengers films, Kang Dynasty and Secret Wars. What was that moment like in the room? What was the feeling like?
The roar, like the literal roar of when we saw that, like you're talking about the culmination of phase 6 is supposed to happen in approximately 1 year, right? Am I looking at that right? Because I took pictures.
You mean in one count, like that phase 6 will be a year? Yes. Because
it's November 2024 to November 2025.
Right. Yeah. Yep.
So much stuff. Okay. Like, I'm feeling like there's a lot of what we're going to see as a buildup. And then all of phase 6 is just culmination after culmination after culmination after culmination. It is nothing but a series of payoffs. And that's going to blow people's minds. And we don't even know a majority of what phase 6 is actually going to be. We have no idea what that is. We know the beginning, we know the very end, and we know a part right before the end. And crazy. We saw that. I think one of the things that made it so great is there's not a set story per se that we know that we're following right now. And that's the best part. Like, when the Infinity Saga, we're like, okay, you read Infinity Gauntlet, you kind of know what's going to happen. there's a question of which Secret War we're getting, right? Is it the 84 one? Is it the 2015 Jonathan Hickman one? We don't actually know which one that is. The Kang Dynasty, how does that actually play into it? Because Kang was a figure in Secret Wars, the 1984 one, but it wasn't really about him like that. So we're about to get something fresh, like something brand new. And if there's any character that I think deserves the villainous treatment like Thanos got, it is Kang. Kang is huge. Huge proponent when it comes to his characterizations within Marvel Comics. So this is the right follow-up to Thanos.
Totally. I completely agree. I think it's weird because I don't want to say Marvel is going to run out of these tentpole villains soon.
Right.
But I almost kind of do because they wasted Ultron, right? Like they one and done them. They were still in that phase. That was a mistake, I feel. And then, Galactus, do you go the Fantastic Four villain route or do you go the Avengers villain route? Doctor Doom, do you go the... Like, there's, there are all these questions. How do you build a phase around a villain every, few years? There are only so many villains who fit that caliber.
Right, who are worth that.
Right. Yeah. So it's going to be interesting to see how they tackle that going forward. Now, I do want to talk about Black Panther because they finally debuted the trailer for Black Panther: Wakanda Forever. As you mentioned, they had the cast there. Yes, they did. And that's a beautiful cast.
Let me set the stage.
Yeah,
we had gone through all of the phase talks, everything, all the things about the future. Feige waits until the end and is like, okay, we've talked about the present, we've talked about the future, let's talk about forever. And we're like, what? What? Lights go dark, and we hear, the song that they play when they enter Wakanda, that very spiritual, da-da-da.
Yeah.
That guy was there, singing live to us. Behind him is his man, like he was his Jerome to his Morris Day on this little drum thing. So the little like that's the dude actually playing that instrument. We saw that.
Wow.
Dude is walking through the aisles, he's singing. Immediately we're in an emotional place. Like everyone in the room trying our best, keep our head up, to keep that tear from rolling down because we're just there, right? We realize there are drummers on stage, they got dancers on stage, they do a whole performance. Everyone in there, I mean, we're just in there, shoulders bouncing, Wakanda Forever, we're in a place, right? Okay, the song is over. Kevin Feige comes back out and he introduces Ryan Coogler. And Ryan comes out on his own. And I love Ryan. Ryan is so authentic. He's from the Bay Area, and you can hear it, like his accent, his Bay accent is so real. I always tease him, like, it sounds like he's gonna try to sell you a CD at any moment. Like you just he's gonna sell you the CD and it's gonna be fire. But he starts talking and he gets emotional talking about Chad. And it's almost done for us then at that point. Like once he does it, right? Like he's shedding thug tears and we're just like, it's over. Like just, right? And then he introduces the cast. He starts with Lupita, brings her out. Then it's Letitia. Then he brings Denai. Then he brings Florence out. Then they bring Winston out. And we're losing our minds, right? Because it's family. Like we haven't seen these folks in 5 years, not since the first, movie was being showcased, and that's where they premiered that trailer as well. But then they bring out Riri Williams, then they bring out Namor, then they bring out Atuma, like they bring out a couple more people, and we're just excited. Like, what are y'all gonna show us? What is it? What's it about to be? Letitia is already in a place where she's already crying when she gets out on stage. She's there. They play the trailer. Not a dry eye. Not a single dry. I saw grown-ass men. Grown-ass white men just sit.
Yeah.
Like, yes. It was a beautiful, beautiful experience. It was amazing. They played the trailer twice. Like, no joke. Like, they did an encore showcase of this trailer. It was that good. It was that good.
So I want to ask you a couple of big picture questions about Black Panther.
Let's go.
The first one, because there are a lot of people that are upset. The first question is, do you think that they should have recast T'Challa for this movie in the wake of Chadwick's passing? Do you think they should have just acted as if, just an actor swap? Or do you think the right thing to do is to pass the torch of the mantle of Black Panther onto, the next person?
So my answer to that is going to sound coy, but walk with me on this one. We don't know this story yet. Specifically, we don't know when this story takes place. And I think that's one of the most important things to recognize about this. This story could very well take place during the 5 years of the blip. And we don't know that it doesn't. Like, that's the thing. We don't know not. So, in that regard, no, they should not have done so for this movie. There's a line that Queen Ramonda says that I lost my entire family.
Right.
We know T'Challa was blipped. As we understood, so was Shuri. So it's very plausible that this is all happening during the blip. That was the thing that they did. They switched it and said, this is the story that takes place during the 5 years that they were gone.
Well, Shuri's in the trailer, right?
Which means that, like, that's how it starts, is during the blip, right? But then something happens, and maybe towards the end, she comes back, and we don't necessarily see him directly. Like, we don't know. That's my open interpretation of I don't know where this is in the story. Now, in terms of the franchise, yes, they should have recast him. Black Panther is way too important of a character to have a done-in-one actor. We've seen, and this is the argument that so many people made, and it's true. We've seen so many different actors step into other hero roles. There have been multiple Hulks just in this franchise, right? There have been multiple Rhodys in this franchise. If you guys can do that, there can be another Black Panther. Chadwick Boseman was amazing in the role, without question. Give someone else an opportunity to live up to his standard, and possibly even take us to someplace new, someplace different. You know what I mean? That's important to us. We won't even get into how many different Batman there have been. We won't get into how many Supermen there have been. Like, allow him to have longevity as a character, because we deserve that as fans. We've waited this long. We deserve that as fans. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, to your point, I understand it's a different circumstance, but Christopher Reeves, he is gone, and other people played that character. We're gonna have a longer discussion about this later, but in general, yeah, like, that makes sense to me.
Yeah.
I think the framing of it being within the, like, during the blip also makes sense for Namor, right? This is now his, like, let's say there's beef between Atlantis and Wakanda. This is the time to strike. Their leaders are gone. Their Black Panther is gone. That makes so much more sense than what I was thinking before. Because if this was post that, I'm like what's the issue, right? Like, what's the issue that they're forcing? But this is just like, no, this is opportunity, and we're gonna go for it. That makes so much more sense now.
Exactly. And I do still question whether or not Shuri was actually blipped, because I know that there's the scene in is it at the beginning of Endgame where they're saying that she's missing, but I question whether or not she's blipped. I think she might have actually just been, like, missing. They couldn't find her right away, but not that she was blipped. I'm throwing that out there.
Wow, that's interesting. I'm trying to figure out the timeline. In Endgame, Chadwick, the human person, was still alive, right? Like,
yes.
Yeah.
So, okay.
Yeah.
Huh.
I'm throwing things out there, just trying to,
No, that puts a seed in my mind, because it's like, well, okay, yeah, he was still alive, but that doesn't mean, like, that doesn't negate what you're saying, because all this stuff can always be,
can always be
on the fly. So
yeah, because if they just say that at the time when they were doing the head counts, they couldn't find Shuri, so they thought she was missing, but she shows up at some point. Maybe she was doing something. She realized what happened, and she was trying to put something in motion, and no one knew where to find her right away. And then she shows up. What does that do? How does that change things? Because when we see the 5-year jump, right, and they're talking with Okoye, we have no understanding of who's in charge of Wakanda at the time. Like, we don't know. So there's a lot of interesting things that can happen. I would love for it to be where Shuri is missing. She's somewhere with Riri Williams. Her mom doesn't know, and her mom thinks that she's gone. So when she comes back, I'm like, why did you do that? And she's like, I had to do this, Mom, blah, 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 blah. And that's a moment, of female empowerment of I had to step up, and I know that's not what you would have wanted me to do. I'm just a little sister. I'm the last, but that means something to me, in a way that is different to you. And I got to do, there's so much story that can be played with. I'm all for it. I want all of that.
And then my last question is, who is it? Who is the new Black Panther? Or, so your theory, the theory you've laid out sort of is that they've left space in your mind for T'Challa to return post-blip. Okay, so with that in mind, who defends Wakanda as the Black Panther in Wakanda Forever?
I think the Black Panther in that one will be Shuri. I definitely think that that's who that will be. What I would love to see in some different cases is that person is not actually Black Panther. Is that it's remember the Dora or somebody that put on the suit in order to fight an Atlantean. Like, they recognize, because when it's Wakanda Forever, right? The idea is that everybody that they can wear something like that. Like, that would be dope to me. You know what I mean? Right. As many as they possibly can. Now, granted, by the end of it, they would have to destroy it because, if my story is right, by end game at the end fight, everybody should wear Black Panther suits. But I think it would be dope if, in her, mind or whatever, she felt like she had to do this. Shuri made a couple of them, and what we see are Dora members wearing Black Panther suits so that they have a standing chance against some overpowered Atlanteans, and we see what they can do. When they share the power of Black Panther, that it's not one person, it is the spirit of Wakanda forever, and that's what the story is.
I like that.
I like it. I like it a lot.
Listen, Marvel, come hire your boy.
He's here.
Now, we do have to wrap up, but I wanted to give you a space because you mentioned that you wanted to clear the air on something. So if you still want to do that.
I need to. Okay, so as you mentioned earlier, one of the books that I've written that we've talked about is the series called The Samaritan that I co-created with Ray McKenzie. The Samaritan is my take on an urban superhero, hooded figure, no costume, no code name, moves into a crime-ridden neighborhood and starts systematically cleaning it up. Very hands-on, very aggressive. There is a show coming to Amazon called Samaritan, starring Sylvester Stallone. It is not based on my book, not at all. There was another comic series that came out, I want to say 2015-ish, called Samaritan, written, created by Bragi Shute. I'm drawing a blank on who the artist was right now, but that is the series that got optioned and picked up by Amazon. It is not my book, nor did they rip off my book. Granted, there are some very similar visuals, the superhero wearing a hoodie. That is not necessarily a unique concept in terms of they had to get it for me. I think that's just a person that's just wearing a hoodie who happens to be a superhero. It's not the same thing as what our intention was with Smith, the lead figure in our series, The Samaritan, who is wearing a hoodie as a means of blending into his urban surroundings and not standing out as a superhero. That was part of the story as to why he wears what he wears. He doesn't want bad guys to see him coming. He just wants to show up, be there on the spot, and pow, I caught you. That's his goal. So my DMs, every time that there's some progress made on this Samaritan movie, my DMs blow up. And people are like, oh, is this yours? Did they steal this from you? Blah, blah, blah. No, they did not steal it. Watch this movie. Please, by all means, check it out. See if it's great. See if you like it. I'm cool with Bragi. I've met him a couple of times. He's an awesome guy. I have no beef with him whatsoever, and I want people to check it out. And the biggest, like, what's funny to me is the show that I think has the closest similarity conceptually to what we did in our series, The Samaritan, is Marvel Netflix Luke Cage. And that one, we had a lot of people that was like, they ripped you off. I'm like, slow down. Let's not say that. Let's say that we are operating in the same space, but we're telling different stories. And there's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with having multiple menu items from the same genre source or the same conceptual source. All that matters is the execution. So pepper to taste. Maybe you like this one better. Maybe you like that one better. But all of them have the right to exist. I am wanting to make sure that everyone knows it is not a ripoff of mine. It's not mine. It's not a ripoff of mine. And it's okay to support both of them without question.
Well,
And the artist on that is Mark Olivant.
Thank you. Mark is very talented, very, very talented.
listen, Amazon, they got money, all right? They have support. It's fine. We all mess with Amazon. That's cool, right? Victor Dandridge, right? Comic book creators, that's what we have to show up for. And so speaking of showing up, I do want to say once again, support Wonder Care presents the Kindergardians. This Kickstarter is funded, but that does not mean that we couldn't use, a little bit more support. We can get a more of a push and unlock some more of those stretch goals. So what I'm going to do right now is I'm going to pledge my support because I want to be a part. Absolutely, brother. You always know this is what we do. So I'm going to go ahead and get my copy secured. And that's what I'm going to do. So here we go. Continue. Hopefully you see this. I don't know if you'll be able to see it.
My phone, it's right next to me.
All right, so here we go. Let's see. Boom. All right, it's making me go through some hoops. Got to log in. You know how it goes. Yes, and pledge. Let's see if it goes through. Pledge.
Thank you so very much. Thank you.
You're very welcome.
My man.
I am. Yeah. What does that make me? The 113th person?
I think so. I think you're 113, man.
Awesome.
That's solid.
Awesome.
Super solid. I love it. And thank you.
I would love to see you guys listening show your support to the man. Always a pleasure to have you. You've been a great supporter of ours and a great guest for many years. So, through different phases of this, and we appreciate it so much, man.
No, thank you guys very, very much. I apologize. I got to run because I got to go get to the show. But thank you for having me on. It's always a pleasure to chat with you guys. I will leave with one more little tidbit. Last fall, I signed an exclusive first look agreement with Aha Media. It's a production company, a development company out of Fort Wayne, Indiana, with offices in LA. I do want people to know, without going into details, any specifics, the Kindergardians are part of that first look deal. So there is an opportunity for that to be transformed into something for film, television, animation, video games. So there is a huge opportunity behind that. And obviously, the bigger the push that we have on the book side, the more eyes will want to be looking at it for other things. So please give it a gander, take a look at it, see what you might like, because you never know. In a couple of years, it might be your kid's favorite cartoon series. That's all I'm saying. That's all I'm going to say.
The QR code's still up. Victor, is that what we talked about this?
Oh,
We might have hinted at a thing, maybe.
Yeah, very loose. Yeah. You told me something.
Super loose. No NDA breakings whatsoever. No.
No.
Super loose.
Just that there was something on the horizon that
was coming, and the thing that's coming was the first look deal, which does encompass things like the Samaritan, the Trouble with Love, as well as the Kindergarten. So
I didn't realize
literally everything that I publish under Vantage In-House is up for development through this deal. So it's a first look agreement. In fact, what I probably shouldn't say, but I'm about to, we're about to get our second agreement in next week. So our second agreement comes in. We've had one already. that we're working on, and we're going to get our second one next week. So Vantage in House, we're aiming to make a household name when it comes to comics as well as other media. So look for these stories.
That's super exciting.
Living up to the namesake, right? Hardest working man in comics.
There you go. Can you let the people know where they can find you before you cut out?
I'm in your hearts and minds already. It's just where I'm living. Hopes and dreams, I'm knocking on that door. No, you guys can find me on all forms of social media at Vantage In-House, VANTAGE, INHOUSE, on Twitter, Instagram, all that fun stuff. I'm on TikTok. I think it's like Victor_D2, hardest recommended comics. Just look for Victor Danvers. It's so much easier. But yeah, I'm on all the things. Definitely check out VantageInHouse.com. And if you're into creating comics, you want to get into it yourself, check out You Create Comics. That's the letter U, CRE, the number 8, comics.com. We have supplies, programming, all kinds of things that we do on an individual basis as well as school assembly basis to help you make your own comics and bring insights to comics as educational material. So holler at us. We got things. We got things for you.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Enjoy GalaxyCon.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yes.
Big shout.
Yes, have a great time. If you're in the region and you're listening live, go check Victor out. Go say hello. We are going to take a quick break, and we will be right back for you people on Twitch. Thank you for sticking around, and thank you again to Victor. Okay, so we're back. And obviously, the boxes don't look right, but I'm going to fix that here in just a second. In the meantime, though, while I am fixing that, I do want to say thanks again to Victor for being phenomenal.
As always.
Such a tremendous guest. He always has really insightful things to say. Go ahead.
I was going to say some of my favorite bits are always the education piece. Like, he's such a big proponent of that, of getting those things into classrooms. You Create Comics. I've gone to the website a few times, and my aunt's a teacher, and I've shared with her like some of the stuff through that. She does high school, but I think for her, like, the value is in just teaching something new to just her kids in general. Maybe not something that she can apply directly, but just from that education standpoint, like, it's super valuable to even just take a look at it. Yeah, he has a free pamphlet on the site. And always worth checking out. Yeah,
for sure. So we're gonna continue on with the show. We've got quite a bit more show to do here for you guys, and we're gonna do some listener questions. That's how we're gonna get into things. Marco, do you have these up? Do you want to read them, or should I read them?
Oh, I can pull them up. Hold on, right. 1 second.
All right, you do that. Who's still with us? Wanna have some fun today?
Did you put up show notes?
Yeah. You don't see them?
I don't.
All right. Well, actually, there was something weird with that, but I'll talk to you about that later. Okay. I'll read them. That's fine. So first up, I have to apologize to Link, who sent in an episode 300 message. That I didn't get to, that we did not get to last week, so I'm going to read his. Link said, "Congratulations, pals, on your 300th episode. I've been listening to the show ever since your X-Men #1 review in 2019, so almost 3 years now. Wow.
Damn.
And seeing your show release is always one of the highlights of my week. I love how varied all of your opinions are, but always respectful and showing a lot of love for the medium. Some highlights of the past years are, in my opinion, your Strange Adventures reviews, where you did a mind-opening analysis of the art and coloring. Yes. And I'll never forget how you guys went all out for the Hellfire Gala last year. Your show is affecting me so much that every time I hear someone say 4, I also hear Kale's voice in my head saying, "Count 'em," from Pals Pulls. I'm excited to see what the next 300 episodes will bring, and for you guys to finally reach 1,000 subscribers so we can see Kale do that backflip. Wish you guys all the best, and thank you so much for doing this every week."
That's awesome. That analysis piece, by the way, my last newsletter was a continuation of that, where I dove even deeper into how the usage of color brings out like an additional bit of the narrative. It helps accentuate a lot of the story beats. So if you're a fan of that, if you're a fan of those reviews, and if you're on the Patreon, definitely go check that out. I think you'll get a really good kick out of it. Something I plan to hopefully do a bit more of, just deeper analysis of comics, and hopefully with Kale too.
Yeah, totally. Kef is still here, says, what a great interview. Thank you. Appreciate that. Victor's a fantastic guy. Still, Stevenson's still here. Thank you. Silv, I was curious if hearing Victor talk about, Kickstarter and his stuff on there, if that did anything for you, or if you found it insightful, I guess, in any way. Mm-hmm. Continuing on with the listener comments on episode 300, the Al1213 says, congrats on your 300th episode. Thank you, Al. Long-time listeners might remember that Al did some art for us. Yeah. Pete said, love you guys. Pete, of course, former member of the Comics Pals. Love you too, buddy. Dan Trudeau.
Man.
Yes. The perennial commenter says, I spent a year looking for an entertainment comics podcast, and yours was the first to not bore or irritate me within the first 5 minutes. I'm surprised. Even better, I enjoyed it more and more with every episode. Your knowledge and passion for comic books is evident. Even when I disagree with an opinion, I always respect where you're coming from. Your Patreon is literally the first I've ever signed up for, and there's no way to calculate how many I've been asked to contribute to. So congratulations on 300 episodes of the best comics podcast on the market. That is huge, incredible praise. I really, really appreciate that, Dan. Like, doing this week in and week out for 5 years, especially early on. Now that we're live, it's a little different, but especially early on, you almost don't even know if anyone hears you. Mm-hmm. And then you see the views go up a little bit, and you're like, okay, well, people hear me, but we don't know if they think we suck. We don't know what they think about it. So to get that kind of feedback, to know that for at least one person, this is the best podcast, the best comics podcast, I never thought I would hear that, so it really feels amazing, and I appreciate it so much. Thank you for your support.
It makes this so much more worth doing, because we know we're affecting somebody to some level. Yeah,
exactly. He also says, the Amazing Spider-Man number 300 is the first full appearance of Venom and the return of the red-blue costume, so that's significant. It's also the most valuable book in my collection. The fact that you have a copy of that is remarkable, and that's I would say that's the crown jewel of 300s. As much as I would love to say our podcast is the crown jewel of 300s, I think Amazing Spider-Man number 300 is tops, because it is a really cool, awesome issue. It's got a great cover. Like, there's so much about it that's fantastic. He also says, on the Snyder article, the most likely explanation is the outgoing executives used a friendly journalist to take a shot at Snyder on their way out the door. The article does nothing to help WB's new corporate overlords, and I'm sure would love the story to go away. Yeah. Look, I can't say how I heard this. I would never, ever betray someone's trust. But I have reason to believe that what I discussed last week when we talked about the article, I believe it was a Rolling Stone article that I said was a hit piece, that felt like a hit piece, I have reason to believe that that's exactly what it was. And I will not elaborate anymore. But thank you to the person who kind of, let me know that I was on the right track.
Tipped us off.
Yeah, tipped us off. So next, we have a comment from Langston Brown from Pals Pulls, who said, Kale doesn't seem to like a rather large amount of artists, so which artists are his favorites? And what is Marco's favorite Swamp Thing run and why? Well, Langston Brown, Kale's not here to answer your question, unfortunately.
I thought you were just going to say, it's just Kale. He's grumpy.
But it's true. Kale is grumpy. And Kale doesn't like a lot of things. I'm not sure why Kale still reads comics. But whenever Kale's back, which it'll be a while before you'll see Kale again. But when Kale's back, we'll bring that question up again and we'll get his answer. Marco though is here, and Marco can tell you about his favorite Swamp Thing run, and he would love to regale you with reasons why it's his favorite.
So my favorite run is actually the one we did for the book club. That first initial arc where it renews the character, it renews the mythos of the character, and then it introduces us to his big bad Anton Arcane. For me, that was one of the first books that I read of serialized comics where it wasn't a graphic novel, it wasn't a Watchmen, it wasn't a V for Vendetta, it was something that was previously published, and the other books were, but the format of it is actually contained it as those individual issues and a serialized story. And it was my first experience reading it, and I fell in love with the character, the depth, the introspection that could be found there. And for me, I've always found Swamp Thing to not necessarily be a superhero. Like, yeah, he's a hero, yeah, he has powers, but for me, that's not where his charm lies. It's in the way that he's able to think through his problems and the way he's able to sort of circumvent them. And it has an appearance with the Demon, who is speaking in iambic pentameter. So, like, hell yeah, first of all. And would heavily recommend that as an introduction, one, to the character, but also as an introduction to horror comics. It's filled with, from an art perspective, Stephen Bassett and John Toddleben do an amazing job of just communicating fear and communicating a mood with the colors from Tatiana Woods. It's a all-star creative team that, for me, knocks it out of the park every time. I do a reread maybe like once a year of just the Alan Moore stuff, and I think it's I think it would do you well to read that.
So Kefis, who is watching us live right now, threw us a question on Discord. What, if any, nerd phrases, words, or sayings are part of your vernacular, even if almost no one else says them? And then Kefis threw out that he bet that I had none because I'm too cool for that. Well, Kefis, you're the first human that ever referred to me as cool, so thanks.
Not even his friends.
No, not my friends. Do you have an answer for this, Marco?
Yeah, so I responded in the Discord, and when I was first reading the Claremont X-Men run, the 80s stuff, and I seriously devoted maybe at least 100+ issues to it, I would notice that he would say proverbial a lot. Anytime he'd bring up some kind of phrase, the proverbial goose's egg, or we have hitting two birds with one stone, the proverbial two birds with one stone. He would always say that. And there was a time frame of about, I want to say maybe a year, where I was like, that's probably cool to say in real life. And would absolutely just bring up random shit, all the time, and say proverbial, preface it with proverbial, and then say some kind of proverb.
Wow.
Popular, buddy. Always popular.
I bet. Yeah, I don't really have any, as you predicted, Kefis. I have things that I say that I, quotes or whatever, but they're not from anything that, not from anything nerd related. Not from comics, not from Marvel or DC movies or anything like that. I guess I have at different points in time. I used to be obsessed with Buffy. I am obsessed with Buffy the Vampire Slayer. And so, somebody would ask me how I'm doing. I'd say I'm 5x5. And if you're a huge Buffy fan, that makes sense to you. And if you're not, you think I'm weird. That's why I don't do those things.
The other one I used to do with my brother was Batman Beyond. We used to say shway to each other.
Oh my god.
Yeah. It's cool.
There you go, Kefis, my man. Faith, yes, Faith. Absolutely. Love Faith. I'm due for a rewatch. I gotta get back into that. Yeah, thank you guys for the support on episode 300. It means a lot. Awesome to receive those comments from everybody who showed up for it, and yeah, we're gonna have a lot of fun things going on for the rest of the year, as we are on the road to starting year 6. So we just celebrated our 300th episode in like 3 months or whatever, 2 months. We're gonna be celebrating our 6th, or the beginning of our 6th year.
Yeah.
So we got a lot going on around here. That means,
busy.
Yeah, it means a lot more content too. So we'll be having a lot of fun. Speaking of fun, it's time to bring back a segment that we have not had on this show
Damn.
in quite some time.
Between just 2 people?
Yeah. Don't need more than one. Don't need more than 2. Don't need more than 1, frankly. Because it is time for the return of Batfleck Watch.
Ooh, bum, 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 bum. We should have a theme song. We should have had a theme song ready.
Right? Yeah, we need one. We got to get one. So, what is Batfleck Watch? Batfleck Watch is whenever there's a news story to comment on about Ben Affleck and whether he will or will not play Batman again. And just go ahead.
Does this redo the points?
This would count.
This would count as redoing points, right?
Yeah.
We'll have to figure that out.
Because, well, if by that you mean, for the end of the year game.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know who voted for what. I don't remember. But this counts because this is confirmation from none other than Jason Momoa's Instagram page that Ben Affleck was in town for Aquaman 2 reshoots. And not just he was in town, he was a part of them. Momoa said, this can't be a spoiler. Obviously, everybody knows, and this is what WB gets or whatever. So this is as good as gold that Ben Affleck will play Batman again in Aquaman 2.
Okay. Underwater suit or like what's up? Like how's because it's just all underwater. Like I don't. Like, what's my dude gonna do? Slowly punch through the like.
I don't know. I wouldn't put it past Batman to have an underwater suit. Of course, that could happen. I think what's interesting about this is that the Batman came out this year. Aquaman comes out this year, December.
Yeah.
And the Flash comes out early or some point next year. So that means within a year's time, we will have seen 3.
Count them.
3 different people play decidedly different versions of the same character. Because Michael Keaton's in the Flash.
2 of those being in the same kind of continuity. And so even to that extent, we have a mix of, I guess, mythos and lore.
Well, not even, because Ben Affleck and Michael Keaton aren't in the same continuity. Ben Affleck's or Michael Keaton's Batman is going to be met by the Flash and Supergirl within the multiverse.
Okay. Well, I guess in that sense, they are in like they can cross over. Where I don't know where that connective tissue with the Batman will fit in.
The connective tissue is if they decide they want it to, because prior to Flash, Batman 89 and DCEU, no connection.
Yeah.
I don't know how I feel about this, man, because part of me thinks that because they don't want anything to do with the Snyder era.
Right.
So part of me is like, shouldn't you just
move away from it?
Yeah, I thought Flash was the movie where they were going to have a clean slate, and that's not what it seems like is happening.
Which is weird because to your point, right? Like, if you want to move away from that world, just stop making movies about it or stop including the characters in there. You're shooting yourself in the foot because now you have to commit to some of those things. You have to commit to the fact that, all right, well, Batfleck is back, and what does that mean for the next set of movies? Like, is he gonna make like Superman made a cameo in Shazam, right? Like, does that mean that any subsequent Shazam movie will potentially include either a Superman that is of the Snyderverse or a Batman of the Snyderverse, or just characters within that Snyderverse? Like, we're sticking to it and I guess the shame will be Flash. We don't know how they're gonna want to treat that movie or treat what comes out of it because of Ezra.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, exactly. And, this isn't representative in any way, shape, or form of what the new regime over at DC or Warner Discovery wants. So they might want to completely pivot away from all of this whenever they get to make their first movie. So it's going to be interesting to see how things progress after The Flash. But I got to tell you, the story of DC, like whenever they get around to doing one of those exposés, that shit's gonna be fascinating. Because the Sony, and it took a hack, it took an email leak to get this information. But like I've been obsessed for years with the culture and corporate goings on behind the scenes at Sony. It's so amazing. So I gotta imagine that the stuff behind the scenes at Warner during the Zack Snyder era would be bombshell after bombshell, just amazing.
Yeah, I can only imagine the stuff that'll come out of that. And for me, the interesting part would be who okayed what, who planned what, because everything is so disparate that it doesn't feel like. I'd be curious where they're in their minds thought there was cohesion. Like oh yeah, this makes sense, and then you release it and it's like, no, that's just stupid. Like none of that makes sense.
Well, Kefis says it's almost as if the DCEU doesn't know what they're doing, and I agree. But the thing is that they kind of never have. I mean, Zach had a vision, whether anyone liked it or not. There was a strategy. After his ousting, it definitely feels like there's no strategy. So it's up to WB Discovery to kind of, figure out what the next play is. Because it's not looking too hot right now. But we're gonna skip ahead. We're gonna skip ahead a little bit, and we're gonna just get right into the Marvel stuff. We're gonna get into the Multiverse Saga. We talked a little bit about that with Victor, and we got his thoughts. And we did a stream, a pop-up stream, on last Wednesday. So if you guys want to hear our full exhaustive thoughts about everything that was announced at San Diego Comic-Con, head on over and check that out. But as we said, the Multiverse Saga was officially announced at San Diego Comic-Con. They gave us the timeline, the big, huge timeline that we all love to see. We got release dates for all the films. We got announcements for Phase 6, 3 films, Fantastic Four, Kang Dynasty, and Secret Wars, the former 2 Avengers movies. But Kevin Feige said that that's not all. There are more reveals coming soon. And, as we kind of predicted, it's looking like they will come at D23.
Yes. Oh, that's hype. Okay, cool.
So not that long to wait. That's just September.
Nice.
But what is, in my opinion, the must-discuss thing right now is a little bet. It's a little bet that Kefis and I have.
Ooh.
Based on the Fantastic Four and their release date for the Fantastic Four film under Marvel. Now, Kefis, our bet was that Fantastic Four would not release before January 1st, 2025. And, buddy, I don't know. It's not looking great for you because they announced the release date, and it is November 8th, 2024. And I've already been on Amazon, and I've already been on cheapgraphicnovels.com because I'm picking out my reward. I'm picking out what I won, what I'm going to win from this bet from you, because you, sir, owe me an omnibus, and I will collect that happily.
And this is barring a potential date move, right? Like, should that happen? And I know you're confident. I know you're confident it's not. But should it happen, you're gonna have to cough up, right?
Absolutely. I will happily, gladly cough up. If if there's some kind of a delay. Now, my question is, okay. Kefis says he'll pay it up once it's in theaters. So you're saying to me that I have to wait 2 years to cash in, where if they had announced, if the date was January 1st, 2025, I would be paying up right now.
Yeah.
That seems a little unfair. I don't know. Seems a little bit unfair.
I think there's room for error there, right? Like with your 2024 date, there's room for error, and I think I'm gonna say I think Kefis is hoping for it because he probably wants a sweet omnibus. But if they had announced it at 2025, the only place is continuing to push back, right? So
generally,
it's a good bet.
All right. So what is there a compromise? Is there a point at which I just win before it hits theaters?
It's tough because we've had instances where they release a trailer or 3 and shit still gets moved. So I would say you lock it in. When are pre-orders for like tickets? Like usually like a month before? No, maybe like the second trailer. I would say the second trailer. I would say the second trailer is like a good point to call it. Be like, you know what? Actually,
I think I'm so confident that this will happen, that this movie will release on the day. I am so unbelievably confident that it would take a disaster. It would take, COVID to ramp up again, or monkeypox to just be everywhere. Something. World War III. Okay? To stop me winning this bet.
A global recession.
The universe would have to conspire. It'd have to be some Final Destination shit for me not to get my omnibus.
Gotta walk onto it like a rake and just...
Sylph says I'm jinxing it. You might be right. But I'm so confident in this that I just can't see it any other way, and I hope to not be wrong. Mm-hmm. Because aside from the omnibus, I am really excited for a Fantastic Four movie. Do we get casting at D23, Marco?
I don't think so. I think the most we'll get is maybe more information about some of the upcoming films and potentially some trailer drop for maybe 1 or 2. But beyond that, I don't think, like, do we know the director?
No director has been announced.
I would say maybe that would probably be the most, but cast, I don't know that they would announce. I would say maybe at a New York Comic-Con, because if we're following the progression of this, right? San Diego, D23, Comic-Con, and Marvel has not been a presence at Comic-Con for a few years now, and so I think it'd be a cool coming back to it if they were to drop that kind of an announcement.
Okay. Yeah, Marvel Studios, they haven't been too kind to New York Comic-Con, I would say, in the last almost 10 years.
Yeah.
I saw the first footage from the first Avengers movie at their Hall H panel in 2011 or whatever it was. And that was pretty cool, but they haven't really given us much. So hopefully, I would love to see that be the case. I really would.
I'm really excited for this movie. I just started the Dan Slott FF series, like the FF run. Yeah. And it's been real good. I think I get it. I think I get it.
Yeah. Yeah, it's good stuff, man. The Fantastic Four are great, and it's sad to me that so many people think that they're just boring or whatever. Mm-hmm. Kind of like the Superman effect of where they're like good people, and the books are about that to some degree, and people don't want to read it. They want to read about scumbags like Batman. But I do want to, speaking of like no director, I want to talk about the Avengers movies real quick, because obviously we know that Kang will be a part of the Kang dynasty. That's a pretty safe bet. Yeah. We know who's directing it too. It's the same director as Shang-Chi.
That's right.
Yeah, Destin Daniel Cretton, I believe is his name.
They're giving him an Avengers movie. That's a lot of faith.
They are giving him an Avengers movie. We don't know who will direct Secret Wars, which is really interesting. Because I always thought the Russos were going to direct Secret Wars. The way they've talked about this event, how important the book was to them as kids, it seemed like it was a no-brainer. But because of all the stuff they have going on with their own studio, they're doing a lot of stuff with Netflix. According to everyone involved, they have nothing to do with these films. Now, Marvel Studios lies to you more than anyone in your life.
My mom?
Babe, I was with the boys. Meanwhile, strip club. Like, they lie to you constantly. I don't trust anything they say. Nothing at all. Kevin Feige is basically a deity to me. But that's that's a liar. Satan level lies. So do I believe that the Russos will not be directing Secret Wars? No, I don't believe that.
Mm-hmm. Sean on that gore level faith.
No faith.
Yeah.
No faith. All praise. No faith.
Yeah. The gods lie. I mean, I can see a scenario where they're not going to be directing, and considering they're giving the Shang-Chi director, I forgot his name, sorry.
Destin Daniel Cretton, I believe.
Destin, like the fact that they're giving him a Avenger, I guess, like, let's call it what it is, like an event kind of movie, right, is big. And I think that the Russo brothers have done it. They've done it well, but it seems like they're trying to give this new wave of directors a bit more authority. And so I wonder if they're not gonna maybe the person who directed The Eternals is gonna be involved in this. Like,
oh no. Please.
Well, but like under the assumption of like that they want this new talent to come in and do new things. Like, they're not going to give it to a James Gunn. They're not going to give it to a Taika Waititi.
Why
right?
not?
Well, because they have their own like slice, and they're happy with their slice. I'm assuming they're happy with their slice of the Marvel universe, and they kind of want to explore within that. And I feel like they're trying to bring up other directors to sort of lead the way and kind of at the helm of ending phase 5 and going into phase 6.
I mean, they've alienated a lot of people. And I guess I can't say it's because of the Marvel machine. There's lots of factors, but like, they've lost a lot of directors. If the Russos aren't in the picture, James Gunn says he's done after Guardians 3. Mm-hmm. I don't see Sam Raimi showing up for a movie like that. That's not really his bag.
Taika's doing his own stuff now, like with the Star Wars.
I don't think that Taika is even the right fit for that kind of movie. I think I think that would be really bad. There aren't a lot of Marvel in-house directors that you can tap. Eternals, I don't want to see two people planking ever again in a movie. Like, I don't want to see dry wooden people trying to make me think that they're having sex.
Dry heaving.
That's what I felt like doing. So yeah, I really don't know where you go. If it's not the Russos, I think you have to look outside of the wheelhouse of Marvel.
Yeah, Peyton Reed is doing Quantumania.
Yeah,
I would wait to see how that sort of looks, and maybe they're gonna give them the helm, just because I feel it's so much easier to use people who are already in the Marvel machine to like maybe bump them up, give them, level them up to some degree, to be able to continue to drive the stories. Like, I would love to see the whoever was the showrunner for Miss Marvel, like, shit, like whoever they got on that team, I would love to see them do more, and even an Avengers kind of movie, because they got to the core of something there.
The people who directed and showrun Miss Marvel, the same duo that's directing Batgirl.
Wait, Get Out, really?
I'm dead serious, yeah.
You know what? Maybe I'm turning around on Batgirl. Okay.
Hey, Miss Marvel, pretty good. I don't know about Avengers. I don't know about going from Miss Marvel to Avengers. That's a little bit of a step. That's a few steps you're skipping right there.
Fair enough. Yeah.
But we'll see. We'll see what Marvel has in store. And again, I do think we're gonna get some answers here at D23, which is in September, so we don't have long to wait at all.
Cool.
I did want to briefly touch on. Let me see if I can find the slide. I did want to briefly touch on Spider-Man freshman year, because this show was initially announced at it's been announced for a while, but we finally saw some footage from it at San Diego Comic-Con. It was a big surprise in terms of what we learned about it, but one critical question kept popping up, and I think we all probably had it in our minds. What the hell is this?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Because in the footage, in the images that were shown, you can see Norman Osborn in that same place that Tony Stark was. So whenever Spider-Man walks into his house in Homecoming and Tony's there with Aunt May, this show has Norman in that spot.
Interesting.
And Peter's going to meet several characters like Amadeus Cho he's going to interact with, Daredevil he'll be interacting with, Harry, Nico Minoru, Doc Ock, all characters who it's pretty safe to assume he's never met, that our Peter Parker has never met, 616 Peter.
Yeah. Tom Holland.
And Tom Holland not voicing Peter in the show. Guess why? We now know this show is not 616. It's not in continuity. It's multiverse.
That's fine. I feel like now that line is going to be so blurred between what is 616, what is multiverse, and what is an acceptable crossover or acceptable to bring in or give away, because I feel like that's for me, the multiverse felt like a safety net for swapping characters and for swapping actors. It is a built-in way to be able to keep all of the monikers for the heroes and have the flexibility of changing them out. Like there's a built-in system there that for me it makes sense to have, and considering that this is not going to be part of 616, I think that's fine, because what we saw in Multiverse of Madness, we went into some animated stuff, we went into these other universes, and for me that's even a basis to say, Into the Spider-Verse is now part of MCU multiverse canon. There's potential there.
No, there's not. Are you bugging?
You don't think so?
No, that's Sony.
Well, no, but for sure, right? But we still had a Tom Holland interact with other Sony related characters and properties. And to be fair, that was, through a deal that they had made that was already on the paper. But one of the things that we had commented on was, now in the mind of people who think about Sony, they've attached onto the Marvel machine, right? They're kind of like that little parasite that's on there, and they can say, oh yeah, we have, characters featuring Spider-Man that it's part of the MCU as well. Now, because of the multiverse, I think anything is fair game, regardless of the company, in terms of bringing characters in or having parallels.
Well, my issue with this project is that it's very confusing. I don't think that most people who tune in to this show are going to get that it's basically a what if. And the what if messaging, the delivery was very clear. This is Tales from the Multiverse.
Yep.
And they didn't really try too hard to make us think like this could be, real. Like, it very much felt like stories that don't quite fit in 616 based on what we know about these characters. Whereas this show is going to be it definitely takes place before Civil War, and it follows a lot of the same beats, but then it goes off on its own path, and it's like, well, did this happen or didn't it happen? So I hope they don't shoot themselves in the foot with the lack of clear messaging. Also, what's frustrating to me is I think the Peter Parker character from 616 needs to be fleshed out. I don't know why I need to see a multiverse version of that same character get fleshed out. I want Tom Holland's Peter to have more depth and identity. I want to know what happened to Uncle Ben. Like, get into that stuff. Don't show us a multiverse version.
It's earned now, so give it to us.
Yeah.
I guess the multiverse is a way to go around some of it, like because they didn't give us a proper, origin for Tom Holland's Spider-Man. This is a way to splice in some of that, and I think to your point though, that makes the messaging messy, that makes the continuity messy, because then there's a sequential dissonance between what's going to happen here and what ultimately happens with Tom Holland.
Right. Yeah. Well, that show's not debuting until 2024, I believe, which is a long way away.
Yeah, 2024.
Yeah. I do wish it was coming out a little sooner. But, it's funny. This is probably the only Spider-Man we're going to have for a little while. I think it's going to be a few years before we see a fourth installment in the Tom Holland Spider-Man films, if we see one at all.
Phase 6, baby.
Maybe. I would love it.
Spider-Man comes home from the multiverse.
Unbelievable. All right. Let's talk about Black Panther, because for me, this was it at San Diego Comic-Con. So we talked about it with Victor. They showed the trailer. It was phenomenal. Over 100, let me make sure I got that number right. Yeah, over 172 million views in the first 24 hours for that trailer.
Well deserved.
Yeah.
People are hype.
Yeah. Oh, Kefis says the Russos went from Community to Winter Soldier. Miss Marvel team can do it. You're right.
There you go. Let's go. Kefis in my corner.
That is a very fair point. On the subject of Black Panther, the trailer, it hits hard. If you haven't seen it somehow, definitely go and watch it. It's amazing. It really is. And I'm so excited to see what they do with this film, what it looks like past the trailer. But for me, this was an all-time great trailer. Angela Bassett was phenomenal.
Power.
Just bringing so much gravity and grace to the screen every time she was on it. I really felt the pain of her character, and that's just in trailers. The music.
Oh man, the transition to All Right.
Yep, that was crazy.
Caught me off guard. I was like, I was vibing to the song, and then it's like All Right, and then they had the little echo to it. I'm like, that's weird. It sounds like Kendrick. Yep. And then it continuously. Wow, that was seamless transition, and thematically appropriate.
Totally. And there's actually a Prologue Soundtrack that's out right now, by Ludwig Göransson, who is the score producer that they grabbed for this one. Did the first one as well. It's got Thames on it. It's got a few artists on it. It's not that long. It's only 3 songs, but it's got the Thames "No Woman No Cry" from the trailer, and it's got a couple of songs that weren't in the trailer. But there is something that I don't think people know about this movie that we have to talk about.
Am I one of those people?
Yes. You definitely are.
Okay.
So we know the worst kept secret in the MCU that Namor would be in this film. We knew that. We knew it. We knew it would be Atlantis versus Wakanda. What we didn't know is that we're wrong about calling it Atlantis, because Ludwig Göransson spilled the beans in an interview that they're not calling them Atlanteans. This is not Atlantis that we're dealing with.
Interesting.
Yup. They are actually changing the origin, not the origin, but the name of the Atlanteans.
Mexicans. No? No, I don't.
Are you asking me? Are you asking me?
I thought you had the answers. I was guessing.
Okay, just because I have the answer doesn't mean that I would have something to say when you throw out Mexican. They're not. That's not what they're gonna do.
They're gonna be like, "Yeah, how'd you know?" I was like, "I don't know, it's, the Aztec design and shit."
Oh my god, no. Unfortunate. Well, no, it's not. But I'm glad you brought up Aztec because they're playing off of sort of the I guess would it be fair to say the myth or like the Aztecs and how they're a lost.
I see. Like an El Dorado kind of situation.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, exactly.
Like undiscovered peoples or something.
Yes, exactly. So it's actually called Talocan, which is it's that name is derived from the Aztec paradise. I'm sorry, I don't know how to pronounce this.
Talocan?
Yeah.
Wait, Talocan?
Yeah, yes.
And then I'm trying to find it. You keep going. I'll find it.
Yeah. So it's coming from Aztec, Mayan cultures. That's where they're kind of pulling this from. And so they're fusing the like mystery and legacy surrounding Atlantis with that of the Mayans and the Aztecs into one and making that the Atlanteans sort of backstory and origin for this movie. So we're no longer calling it Atlantis. It's Talocan now.
That's cool. That's really cool. When we did the San Diego like debrief on everything, that was probably one of my favorite things is the way the community popped off for Namor and for him being Hispanic, and that for me I think resonated very much because it's exciting to see somebody who looks like me in like as a front and center, either antagonist, hero, whatever it might be, but to be there and have that visibility, like that's exciting. And the fact that they're rooting it into something that's a bit more tangible, I think for me, it makes a lot of sense. And there's a sense of pride to it. I have Mexican friends on Instagram who were like excited specifically because of that representation, and it's going to be really entertaining to see Mesoamerica as a people's that I think like as a native people is something that maybe doesn't get told a lot. Mexico or your Ecuador, Colombia, like with the hubs of some of these places, Guatemala, it's all mired in drugs and in gangs. And so the fact that we're bringing something that is more, in my opinion, I guess, respectful of, or something that is more grounded in the culture, makes it that much more powerful.
Yeah, I totally agreed. Sylve makes a great point to distance from Aquaman. Mm-hmm. I actually somehow hadn't considered that. That's a very, very good point. There's so much overlap there. I could see it being confusing for audiences. And this is a great way to, what you're saying, Marco, to show us something different. Show us a different kind of people, and get into something that, unfortunately, there hasn't been much representation for in the MCU or the DCFU.
Yeah, right? There's no Hispanics in Marvel.
Not at all.
Just Tenoch Huerta now. That's it.
Yep.
The man.
Carrying the flag. And looked awesome, by the way, as Namor.
Oh, dude. I'm so excited for it. The aesthetic is beautiful.
Yeah. You want to play a quick game?
Yeah, let's go for it.
All right. And hopefully the chat will get involved in this game, too, since it's just Marco. We're going to play Two Truths and a Lie real quick. And it's all about Namor. Since Namor is, front and center right now, I figured we could quickly play a game of Two Truths and a Lie. So, the way this works is I'm going to tell you I'm going to make 3 statements. One of them is not true. The other 2 are true. And simply, you have to tell me which one is not true.
Okay.
All right. So, the first one is Namor is a mutant. This is not necessarily something that Namor, wears on his sleeve, but Namor is a mutant. Namor is notably one of the first mutants to be known as such. One of the older mutants.
Okay.
Namor, obviously we all know that Namor is very popular with the ladies. So much so, more particularly Sue Storm.
Mm-hmm.
Namor and Sue Storm have had a lot of heated moments, and Namor is actually the only other person in the Marvel canon that Sue has had sex with.
Okay.
And the last one, the very last one, is that the very first crossover in Marvel happened with Namor. It included Namor. It was a it was a fire versus water gimmick with the original Human Torch.
So, the first one I know is true.
Okay.
Only because we read the Hickman stuff, and there was a tense meeting between him, Magneto, and Xavier, where they're like, "Hey, we could make something happen, and you could come. You would be welcome." Mm-hmm. They extended the olive branch, to which Namor appropriately shat on them, which was fucking amazing. The second one, I'm glad I read FF for this, because they make allusions to it and the kind of relationship they once had. It didn't seem to be sexual, so I'm questioning that one. And there was an instance where, I'm forgetting the daughter's name, but they're on this one world where there's this tall, muscular, and off color, he's like red, that she's infatuated with. And Reed gets nervous about it and makes comments and allusions to Namor, which is why it gets brought up. And then the last one, I know for sure that was definitely a crossover with the Human Torch. It gets talked about in Marvel's Kurt Busiek and Alex Ross. I'm going to go with the second one being a lie. I don't think they actually smash. I think there's just tension there, and it's a lot of sexual tension, but I don't think she's ever crossed the line.
All right. Kefis says true, lie, true, which is consistent with what Marco said. And you guys would be correct.
Yes, let's go, Kefis.
You guys would be correct. Sue, as much as she has had an emotional affair, Namor is her emotional friend, if you will.
Yeah?
Yes, absolutely. Namor is her emotional friend. And she has tried to make Reed jealous and make him pay attention to, what he's got at home. Who's waiting for him at home, which, look, science is cool, I guess, and saving the world is awesome, and, whatever, Galactus got to stop him. But when you have Sue Storm at home, how do you leave?
You can't even see her.
Oh, we can see her. We can see her. But yeah, that you nailed it. You nailed it.
Okay. I read comics, Sean.
I'm shocked. I thought it was an easy win.
It's interesting also because I imagine it's pretty hard to find like lore on Namor like that.
Right.
See, just in general. So
yeah,
it's good stuff.
All right. Well, let's dive into the main topic, which is all about Wakanda Forever. I have read a lot of people's thoughts about this film, the trailer, watched people's thoughts. And I'm I gotta say, I have a question, I guess. Is Marvel making a huge mistake with Wakanda Forever? I'm saying I think it might be Marvel's most controversial film, and it's not even out yet.
Controversial in what sense?
So there's a few layers of controversy. The first, it starts with T'Challa. It starts with Black Panther himself. There are a lot of people who are upset that Marvel chose not to recast this role for the foreseeable future. Now, I understand, Victor's theory that maybe this takes place during the blip. And that would be a huge swerve. But I don't feel like that's what's going on. I could see maybe the sequence of the queen. I forgot her name. Queen Nadia, maybe.
I'll check it out.
Of T'Challa's mother. I can see that scene taking place where she says, "I lost my whole family." I could see that taking place during the blip, but the movie itself, I don't believe does.
Ramonda,
thank you. Because Shuri's there, and I'm almost certain that in Endgame, please correct me if I'm wrong, if there's someone here who remembers it better than me, I'm almost certain that at the end, when everyone comes back, she's there. And if that's the case, that would imply to me that she was snapped. I don't remember if she was snapped away in Infinity War, if we saw that.
So it looks like it said that both her character and Letitia Wright Shuri had survived the snap. However, this is in an interview with Angela Bassett, and the Russo brothers, however, were tight-lipped on whether or not Shuri survived, and we technically never see Shuri get snapped on screen, but we don't actually see her come back necessarily.
Okay. All right. Well, then that does actually lend credence to what Victor said. Kefis, oh my God. I don't know, man. I don't know. She seems pretty unhappy for someone whose husband can stretch like Reed. So he's doing something wrong. Welcome, Shenron. Thank you for joining us. And that's a good point, too. Wong came through at the end of Endgame, and we know he wasn't snapped. That is a very fair point. Yeah. I interpreted that differently just because I interpreted that as him helping bring everybody else through, but you're right in that's not confirmation. But let's assume, I guess, for the sake of this conversation, that this takes place after the snap, after the blip, post-Endgame.
Yeah.
And they really just have chosen not to recast. And that's the way forward. Let's assume, for argument's sake, that that's the case. Because you're right. We can't say that that's a fact right now. If that's true, the argument that people are making is that Marvel has removed from the equation the premier black superhero.
I don't like that narrative. It's all right. I guess to address the first point on not recasting, I do think it's, in the event that it doesn't happen, I do think it's a mistake. I'm not going to be mad or angry at Marvel for it because they're going to make their decision, and I think T'Challa is such a prominent character in the Marvel universe in general that T'Challa as a character should not go away. Now, if they remove him, I think you're losing out on potential for stories. I think you're losing with that character specifically. And that's not to say that you can't have a Shuri replace or some other character replace the function, but the character itself, you'll be losing out on something like the Illuminati if that ever pops up again, or there's a net loss with that. And by way of that second point of removing a prominent black character, I would disagree because you have Letitia Wright there. She's not her character.
Whoa, everybody's problematic least fave, Letitia Wright?
But all right,
you're saying to me, Chadwick Boseman, the most beloved MCU actor, right? Playing Black Panther, the premier black superhero. And then you're going to say Letitia Wright, anti-vax person. Potentially, I think maybe there was some anti-trans stuff.
There might have been.
Out of turn. And we're going to replace the golden boy, the golden man, with her, and we're not losing anything?
I'm not saying we're not losing anything, but I'm saying that they're not trying to remove this character. They're not trying to remove the representation. And I think that that's, to me, two separate things. The representation end of having a premier black lead, versus having an arguably good person as that lead, like someone to set the example.
Well, even okay. So before we dive further into that, I do want to bring up some of the other factors that are at play right now.
Yeah.
So it's the fact that it appears that we've lost T'Challa for the foreseeable future, and that T'Challa will be replaced in the Black Panther role, most likely by Shuri. Now, the other aspect of that is also the idea of the erasure of the black man in a prominent role in Wakanda. If you look at the structure of Wakanda, even in the first movie, the only relevant black man is T'Challa in terms of the structure of Wakanda.
Yeah, fair.
And so if he's eliminated from that space, then there are no prominent black men who are responsible for Wakanda. Of course, we will see the return of M'Baku, but M'Baku's not like...
He's not a main character.
Right. So there's that aspect as well. Then there's the aspect of people not wanting to trust this trailer because the first trailer for Black Panther, the initial film, was amazing. The visuals were phenomenal. And then when it came time to watch the actual movie, while it's a gorgeous movie, I don't think it's possible to argue that there is definitely a quality difference between the trailers and the final result, especially when you look at the last battle, the action sequence at the end.
Oh, yeah, that was a little boring.
Boring, yes, but more importantly than that, from a visual standpoint, it wasn't as sharp. It was the visual effects were not as good. And that's probably people's biggest complaint about that film.
It's not bad, but...
Ooh, go back and watch that last fight, dude. Yeah. I love this movie. To me, it's like a top 5 Marvel movie, but that last sequence is not great.
Okay. All right. So I get the point on like the removal of that central character and him being male, but I don't know that I'm of two minds. I don't know that matters for the function of Wakanda, like within the logic of the Marvel universe. Like, yes, you don't have your premier male leader, but you do have the queen regent is still there. You have the royalty there. Like the function of it in context is still there. It's still royalty, and it still works, even though that male figure is not there. But to your point on not having a male representative there, I can see that. I don't. And then it gets tricky, right? Because then you want that to be the Black Panther, right? That is the representation of it. I don't know. I personally would not see an issue with it, but I could understand and empathize with the fact that we don't have the Black Panther be a male black man. So
before I respond, CJK Killer says, just been just sitting in the background for the last 30 minutes. Love the show, guys. Thank you so much. Really appreciate that. That's awesome. If you haven't, please do leave us a follow, and I really hope you enjoy the rest of the show. How'd you find us? Are you a regular listener, or is this your first time with us? Kefis says, it seems as though the pain of losing Chadwick to everyone involved was so great that not recasting him is a sign of respect for this movie, but going forward he needs to be recast. And Sylv Stevenson says the future is female. Hey, I'm all about it, right? I loved how many women were important to Wakanda. It's such a stark contrast, I think, to the rest of, well, maybe less so now, but maybe back then more, to the rest of the MCU and what we're used to. So I got no problem with that. I thought it was great from that standpoint. But as it stands at this moment, I feel like the most important male character that's going to be in the movie is the freaking white CIA agent.
Martin Freeman.
Come on, man.
Yo. He's gonna come back and bow and shit. Dude, that's so funny. Actually, to your point, he is going to be the most prominent male character in that.
M'Baku, probably.
Nah, he's not going to get as much screen time as Martin Freeman. You kidding me?
I think the most prominent male character in the film will be actually Namor.
Actually, yeah, good point. And you know what? A person of color. And I think that's... Actually, no, that's not even a good trade-off necessarily, right? It's just a different context.
Yeah, so that's the weird thing. And look, I want to say this because this is a conversation that is genuinely very important to me. And I want to shout out Showmonger, because Showmonger, who is a friend of the show, who has a YouTube channel, go check him out. He did a show where they were talking about this, and there was a lot of anger on that side. Not so much from him, more so from his guest. And the problem that I have, because look, ultimately I agree. I think T'Challa should have been recast. I want to see what they did, how they've used T'Challa and Black Panther to elevate that character, to take a black superhero to heights that we've literally never seen before. I mean, if you think about it, prior to Black Panther, who's the most prominent black superhero? To the minds of people who go and see these movies. You got Blade.
Luke Cage.
You got Luke Cage. You got Blade. You have Storm. And I guess Cyborg and Jon Stewart. Of those...
Have we seen Jon Stewart?
No, I just mean like in the animated series. I see. Yeah.
Okay.
Overall public consciousness. Of those, one of them has starred in their own movie, that being Blade, which will be happening again. The rest have either never been in a movie or have been side characters in a movie.
Sure.
Black Panther is the first one, name on the marquee, made $1 billion. Kids, white kids, dressing up as the Black Panther. White kids want to be the black character. When does that happen? And now, I'm not saying that, white girls, white children won't still want that when this movie comes out. I'm sure it will happen. But I feel like, black boys they lost something.
I see. Okay. Yeah.
And that representation was so important. Remember when they were taking kids by the bus load. Teachers were paying to take their children, their classes, to see this movie because they knew how important it would be for those black children to see this. And now Chadwick is gone, and we lost that. I don't want the loss of the man to be the loss of the character. To me, that's not right. This is a character that needs to stand the test of time, that has to be around for 100 years. Just like Spider-Man, just like Batman, Superman, everybody else. And it can't be that character is so tied to this one actor that all of that is in jeopardy. And I'm not saying that because a woman is playing the character that the future is at risk. I don't believe that. I really, really don't. I'm talking about T'Challa.
Yeah.
Black Panther, sure, fine. There have been other Black Panthers in the comics that weren't Shuri or T'Challa. I'm talking about T'Challa. But what bothers me so much, Sam Wilson, thank you, Kefis, you're absolutely right.
Ooh.
What bothers me so much about the conversation of people who are mad about T'Challa not being recast is that so much of it feels sexist. That's what pisses me off. Is that it's very like from a place of like red pill borderline. There have to be powerful, strong women in these movies, because guess what happens if you don't do that? We've seen what happens if you don't do that. These spaces are for women, they're for men, they're for every kind of person that exists, right? And if you're boycotting this movie because that's what's going on, there are conversations about boycotting.
Get out.
If you're boycotting this movie because a woman is most probably going to be the Black Panther without knowing that for a fact, having only seen one trailer, and you don't know the story of the film, I think you need to reevaluate what's important to you.
Take a look inside.
I'm supporting this movie no matter what. Not just because it's a Marvel movie, which I would go see it regardless. I might go see it if Martin Freeman was the Black Panther. You know what I'm saying? Like, I'm just kidding with that one.
That's not gonna happen. That's grounds for boycott,
dude. They could resurrect Killmonger. They could do so many. They could CG Chadwick Boseman before they bring Martin Freeman and put that man in a Black Panther costume.
Yo, if to Victor's point, like it's all the Dora that are like masked up and stuff, and you just see like Martin Freeman just like happens to be there in costume. You know what? I fuck with that. That'd be kind of goofy. I could see that.
Hey, Kefis, you go ahead and clip that, bud. Appreciate it. CJ, thank you. I'm glad that we're up your street. We do this every single Saturday at 10:15 a.m. Eastern, and we review comics on Thursdays at 6 for our show called Palace Pulls. Appreciate you being around. Yeah, I don't want the messaging from us. I'm talking about us, right? From black people. I don't want the messaging to be, we're not going to support this movie because a black woman is the star. That's bullshit. And if you're a black man and your thinking in any way resembles that, you got to do something about that. I'm challenging you right now to do something about that line of thinking. You can talk about it. We can talk about anything. We can talk about the lack of T'Challa. We can talk about the lack of black male representation in Black Panther, in Wakanda right now. But what you can't do, what we're not going to do, is we are not going to put down black women as a result. And we're not going to boycott a black movie. That's what we cannot do. Because the only lesson, I'm sorry, Marco, the only lesson they're going to learn from that is that black movies don't sell. And that's what we cannot do. That's the only lesson they're going to learn. Make noise on social media, but show up in that theater when the movie comes out.
I think you have to separate those issues. You absolutely have to separate those issues of, like, to your point, you can talk about the lack of the representation of having a black male character and still be like, well, that was a dope movie with a black lead, with a black female lead.
Right.
Incredible, right? And to the point on representation where you have, the kids being brought to the theaters by the busload, you can have that same argument for this upcoming movie where you have busloads of black girls coming over, or for Namor having Hispanic kids come through, right? Like for Captain Marvel, for Miss Marvel, dude, I can only imagine once the Marvels movie comes out, that's going to be an empowering moment as well for women, and it's going to be a similar thing to Black Panther, to a Captain Marvel. All those things are going to be the touchstones for representation, and you can have the argument in good faith about the lack of a Chadwick Boseman or the lack of a T'Challa, and those things have to be separate from the quality of a film just because there's a separate lead in it.
Yeah, completely. We have to. This is not the place for it, but there's a lot of healing and conversations that need to go on within the Black community as it relates to issues like this. But at the end of the day, this is probably the most important movie Marvel's going to put out for a while when it comes to how it's going to impact people. Because the first Black Panther impacted many people. And I think now with the death of Chadwick, this movie is going to impact people a lot more. And we just have to find a way to strike that balance. Mourn the loss, respect the man, but let's move on into the future. You know, and it's called Wakanda Forever. This is about unity. It's a movie about unity, and I should not feel like we're so divided right now.
On that topic, on it specifically. And I think to your point, right, it's an interesting thematic name, the Wakanda Forever, and talking about unity, and the movie looking at or examining the conflict and disagreement between these two nations or these two peoples. And I think as much as, you know, this is a mourning time for Chadwick, we also have to look at the other aspect of what a funeral could be, or what death is. It's also a celebration of life, and it's a celebration of his history, of the history that he brought to the character, but also a celebration. It could be viewed as a celebration of this new introduction to this new world, this new culture that gets brought to the forefront because of this movie. Like that to me is also one of the takeaways is, yes, we can still feel the hurt of Chadwick and T'Challa, but we're also getting introduced to a more expansive world within Marvel and a more represented world within Marvel, and that can only be celebrated. And we have, if Shuri is the new Black Panther in this film, a new lead as well. Like this can only be viewed in my mind as a good thing across the board, a leveling up of the mythos for Wakanda, for Black Panther, and an extension of that through Shuri.
Yeah, I hope that's how it goes. I maintain we need T'Challa back. I hope that by the close of this movie, we learn he's been resurrected or something like that.
Something.
If that doesn't happen, then I think there's another conversation, a different conversation that needs to be had. But I wouldn't be surprised if there was something like that. And I also know for a fact that everyone involved in the creation of this movie is going to get a lot of questions about this issue as we get closer to release. So this is a conversation that will be ongoing. It's a conversation we have to have as fans, as people. But just keep in mind that there are a lot of things that are important in this situation that go beyond just your specific point of view, and that we need to be having conversations that are honest about our point of view and why we feel that way, where that's coming from. So just always be cognizant of that.
Well, one last point is for this movie, I think the theme is appropriate, and I hope that at the end of it we get, one of the end scene credits. We don't get to see who the new T'Challa would be. Like that, my hope is that they make a reveal that we don't get to see who the new actor is, but we get a glimpse. We get a glimpse of the man, and I think that would be extremely valuable for the confidence of I guess people who might disagree with the direction that they took, but I think also instill a confidence in that this character is still going to be around. Because I agree with you. I think he needs to be recast because T'Challa is so important to the larger MCU.
Think about how weird it would be for the actors in this film Wakanda Forever if, Chadwick just died and they show up to set and there's a new dude.
Right?
Like, hey, I'm T'Challa.
Like, they need a breather.
So, when you think about other people, right? When you think about the totality of this thing, it's like, it kind of makes sense. But we'll see how it plays out. We want to hear your thoughts about this issue. We want you guys to sound off. What are your honest feelings about, what the future should be for Black Panther, for T'Challa, for Wakanda? Are you happy with the decision making at Marvel over this issue? Obviously, Marvel was put in a bad spot. An unfortunate passing of a great human that they now have to deal with and react to. It's difficult. And I don't know that I have the right answer, but that's why we're talking, because we have questions.
Well, I have the right answer, so.
You can send your questions or your answers to us. There's any place you're listening to this, there's a way to comment. The description will include a link to all of our content, all the stuff we do, the social medias will be in the link tree. I want to shout out, before you leave, if you're watching this live, make sure you hit the follow button. If you're watching this on YouTube or listening on an audio platform, subscribe, like the video, like the audio, follow us. All that stuff's free to do, and it helps us out a lot more than it costs you. Patreon.com/thecomicspals, where for as little as $3 a month, you can support your boys and get some great content from us, some additional content that's not available anywhere else, like our newsletter. We also have Palling Around, which is our after dark show where we talk about whatever we feel like talking about that doesn't necessarily pertain to comics. And you can vote in our book club, which I neglected to mention. Voting did close. And I don't want to call it before I look, but I think I won. I think
Which was yours again?
Mine was Batman White Knight.
That's right, okay.
Yes. And I think, let's see, here we go. I'm checking it live.
I kind of want to do homework. I kind of hope that Final Crisis, the Crisis Infinite Earth wins.
At 40% of the voting, White Knight and Curse of the White Knight have won.
Ooh, all right. It's good stuff.
Yes. So thank you to everybody who voted. We'll have the next vote up soon. YouTube.com/thecomicspals. Watch this show live, twitch.tv/thecomicspals, 10:15 a.m. Eastern. If Tyler's here, if he's not, some point after that, 6 p.m. on Twitch Eastern for Pals Pulls. Thank you guys so much for listening. I appreciate everybody who stuck around for the earlier technical difficulties. You guys mean the world to us. We will see you guys next week for the show. Oh, plugs, Marco.
You can find me on Instagram and Twitter at Mr. Marco Enomoto. What am I doing? I don't know. I've been watching It's Always Sunny. So if you like It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia, it's a good show. It's irreverent and stupid, but I'm having a good time.
Awesome. As for me, you can follow me on Twitter and Instagram at Sean Soapbox. I'm going to a Coheed and Cambria show tonight, so I'm pretty pumped about that.
Wait. Say that a little more excitedly, Sean. I don't think it came through.
I'm going to a Coheed and Cambria show tonight.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm pretty pumped. It's gonna be a lot of fun. I saw them last year, so it's not been that long. Maybe that's why I didn't sound so pumped. But they got a new album out, so they'll be playing cuts off that. Should be a lot of fun. Hope you guys enjoy yourselves. Thank you for listening. Until next time, we're the Comics Pals signing off. Take care, guys.
I'm gonna steal his bit. See you next week.